thought we could only maximum have 7 based on how many weren't coming. We got 8. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, September 7th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of Wethersfield. Tony, would you run down the call to order? Excuse me, the roll call?
Sure, Chairman.
No,
Yeah.
you can do it. I'm sure you're perfectly
I used to
capable.
do, Chairman Tom Harley,
Here.
Vice Chairman Margiotta here, Clerk Roberts,
Here.
Members Hughes, absent Members Oikle, absent Members Hammer,
Here.
Omeki, absent Dean,
Here.
Allard,
Here.
Edwards, absent Antoniak,
Here.
and Silver.
Here. Thanks, now that I started that way. Anyways, public hearing, application 1920-16-Z, Michael and Beatrice Hammond, seeking a special permit in accordance with section 3.5, an accessory use to park a recreational vehicle larger than permitted, and for the storage of 3 trailers in a residential zone at 120 Harding Street. If the applicant would come up and join us, and for everybody else, this is the way the process works. When it's a public hearing, the applicant will ask the applicant to present the issue to us. The commission will ask questions of the applicant. When we are satisfied that, we have enough information, or at least have enough for the moment, we'll turn it over and ask, the public to present their opinions, their thoughts. And then we will bring the applicant back up and we will continue a dialogue. If in fact we feel comfortable with the information that we've gotten tonight, we can move to close the hearing. And then if we do that, we could move on to have a vote on the application. All right, so that's how it works. So at this point, would the applicant introduce themselves and introduce the project to us, or the issue?
Good evening, Commission members. I'm Michael Hammond, my wife Beatrice Hammond. My wife and I own and reside at 120 Harding Street here in Wethersfield. On July 9th of this year, we received by mail a notice from Wethersfield zoning officer Justin LaFontaine. I visited Mr. LaFontaine at his office on Monday morning, the 11th. He explained to me that in order to store an RV greater than 18 feet, we would need to request a special permit. He further stated that the snowmobile trailer was also unfortunately in violation, as only 1 trailer is allowed. I informed him at that time, although it was not visible, that we also had a small 16-foot boat and trailer in the yard. He informed me that I could request in the same special permit to store 2 additional trailers in the yard. He referred me to the planning department for application and special permit. After speaking with Ms. Bradley in the planning department, we put together the application in hopes of receiving permission to store 3 trailers in our yard. The trailers in question are in our back side yard on the Cummings Street side of the home. The RV is parked next to the house in an alcove created by our den and 2nd bedroom. The alcove is 20 feet deep and the camper is just over 23 feet long. Therefore, viewed from the front of our house, about 3.5 feet of the front of the trailer are visible. The snowmobile trailer, 14 feet, is parked immediately adjacent to our 6-foot fence. The only portion that is visible from outside the fence is the extreme top of the trailer, approximately 6 to 8 inches. The boat, 16 feet, is parked between the snowmobile trailer and the house, and because of its height, it's not visible at all from outside the fence. We have a 12-foot gate immediately in front of the RV to facilitate removal of the trailers. It is kept closed with the exception of moving one of the trailers. When we move one of the trailers, we are careful to have spotters to watch for other vehicles and pedestrians. As a professional firefighter and driver for over 25 years, I am very familiar with safe backing practices. As you look at the pictures, you can see them from all angles, from the front of our house on Harding Street, around the corner, and down Cummings Avenue, all the way to Oakdale. The boat is never visible from street level, and that only the very top of the snowmobile is ever visible. The snowmobile trailer is ever visible. While the RV is visible in varying degrees, depending on the viewing angle, it is obscured to a great degree by the house and the fence. Furthermore, we are diligent in keeping the camper clean and neat as we are with the rest of the yard. My wife and I have worked hard to make improvements to our home in the nearly 3 years we have owned it. We take pride in our house and property as well as that of the whole neighborhood. We were told prior to our arrival the house often had derelict cars in the yard, and the yard was very poorly kept, to put it mildly. We feel we have not only improved over what was here in the past, but also have gone well beyond that to create a home and yard that we can be proud of and that adds to the overall character of the neighborhood. We received many compliments from our neighbors, and that has reinforced our pride. We hope you had the time to visit and see for yourself. My wife and I work hard, and we also enjoy our free time with our children. The snowmobiles, boat, and camper are how we like to spend our time. We do not feel our trailers detract from our property or from our neighborhood as a whole. For these reasons, we ask that you approve our special permit and permit us to keep and store our trailers in our yard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there questions from the commission? No, not at the moment.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
You don't
Yolanda?
So, I was just wondering, I did get a chance to take a look.
Okay.
You really take care of your home, I could see it, and just as you said, everything is nice and clean and neat and exactly how you described it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, but just one of my questions is, have you, because you're seeking a special permit,
Mhm.
because typically we don't allow that size in the
Mhm.
backyard, have you looked at other options?
We have, as far as storing it off property, we've found anywhere from $75 to $125 a month to store it off property, which would be expensive for us, would be a stretch for us. It also makes it difficult to clean it and maintain it and pack it, unpack it, et cetera. So we have looked at those options, but we would hope to be able to keep it in our yard.
And how often do you use the trailer?
We have used it in the past upwards of probably 6 or more times a season. This year, not quite as much because we have been doing a lot of work on the yard. So we've only used it a handful of times this year. We hope next year to use it as many as 8 or 10 times.
So typically you do use it pretty
Yes,
often?
yes.
Dan? You seem,
I noticed, I did drive by the house, I noticed the fence. The problem, I just wanted to indicate, the problem I have is the fact that our regulations call for one trailer, and you're asking for a special permit, and so we allow, not allow, subject to special use for one trailer, and this is 3 trailers. And although it's not visible from the street, it's when we have an obligation to follow the zoning regulations. The ZBA can issue what we call variances. We don't have a right to issue a variance. We have to go according to, the zoning regulations.
Okay, I only requested it through the special permit because on the advice of Mr. LaFontaine and Ms. Bradley said that I could include that in the special permit. If it's not permitted,
That's something that
I
we'll be
apologize.
discussing. I just wanted to bring
Okay.
it to you while you had an opportunity, part of the public hearing. I just wanted to bring that out
okay,
because of the number.
Okay.
And whether or not we have the right to issue it. That is my question, and be
Okay.
faithful to our responsibilities.
Okay.
Not because it's not neat, and I'm glad there's the fence and everything else.
okay.
could I just follow up on Ms. Antoniak's question? What time of year do you typically use the trailer? Do you use it during 3 months of the year, or are you using it year-round?
The trailer gets used generally the end of April, beginning of May. This year, our last trip is scheduled for the first week in November.
So roughly 6 months?
Six months,
the-
six-ish
The good
months.
6 months?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions, or should I open it up to the public? So there are, yep. So there are 2 letters in the file. I think you all saw the letter from the applicant with the pictures. There are 2 other letters. One is from the Barrows family at 102 Harding. This is a letter of support indicating that the current property owner is keeping the property in good shape, contrary to perhaps the previous one, and that the trailers are barely seen behind the fence. And again, they support the applicant. Another correspondence, this is from Adam Demaria at 120 Harding Street, and they are not in favor of it, indicating that the angle of view from their home, and they've presented some pictures, it's a little more severe, being able to see into the backyard. They are probably somewhat raised up. The bottom line is several reasons they don't. Basically, they can just see it much more clearly. Ready? So with that, are there any more questions of the applicant before I open it up? Okay. Doing so, if you would relinquish the microphone, I'll have other people come up. And I did see a hand. Please join us. Just start by identifying yourself.
Pamela Fitzgerald, 108 Harding Street. I wasn't aware I was supposed to send the letter in to you, so I brought the letter with me. So
Oh, that's
I
fine.
can read it. I'm writing this letter on behalf of Michael and Beatrice Hammond at 120 Hardin Street. I have known the Hammonds since they purchased the house. The Hammonds continue to keep the property in immaculate shape, and in my opinion, has one of the nicest lawns in the neighborhood. It is my understanding that there is a concern that the camper that they have parked on their property, along with a total of 3 trailers for their other recreational vehicles. Honestly, until this was brought up, I had to think twice to remember if there was really a camper there and if there were any trailers on the property. I actually went outside and looked out the door to say, oh, is there really anything there, and peeked over their fence. The camper and trailers are parked behind the house and are in an enclosed fence. It's not noticeable, and in no way does it bring down the appearance of their property. So I'd like to leave this letter.
Thank you. Just, we'll pass it down. Thank you very much.
Sorry, where did you live?
Your address again?
108 Harding.
Okay.
Thank you. Somebody else, please.
Good evening. My name is Nelis Bido Jimenez. I also live on Harding Street. I live right across from the Hammonds. And everything that has been pretty much stated already, I completely agree with in regards to in support of the Hammonds. Since they moved in, the neighborhood has completely improved for the better. They're lovely people. They maintain their property in impeccable shape. And I can truly say that because we live right, my husband and my daughter and I, we live right across from their property. We live on 119 Harding Street. And the previous owners, it's every time we looked outside, it was awful to look outside our front window. And I am in complete support. I agree with Pam. When I found out, when we got the letter, I was completely baffled. I just, yeah, there was no issue for us at all. We could barely see the trailer, and, you know, again, they're just wonderful people. They maintain their property in impeccable condition, and they've been a blessing.
Thank you.
I really hope you really consider and in favor of these lovely people maintaining their vehicles.
Thank you. Would you do me a favor, and what was your last name again?
Nelis Bido Jimenez.
Thank you.
Bido Jimenez.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Pleasure.
Sir?
Good evening, board members. My name is John Tremblay. I've been a resident of Crystal Street for 55 years. I think you've done a great job on your property. I have known the previous homeowners. The question is how high are the additional 3 trailers gonna be?
So,
Are they gonna be in sight?
so the applicant has indicated that the 3 trailers are already there. 2 of them are shorter.
This is for permission to keep what's already on the property there.
I hate to say this, but I disapprove of this. You know, Wethersfield, you know, I'm old-fashioned, and I believe if there's an alternative to park them somewhere else, I would wish you can do that, because I don't agree with people parking in their backyards. And that's just my opinion, because, you know, we're a small community. And if one thing leads to another, you know, who knows what everybody else is gonna start to do. And I just feel it's my right to say no, I disapprove. So I thank you, board. I thank
you.
you very much. You've done a great job on your property, but I'm sorry, I have to disapprove.
Thank you. Just somebody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Board. My name is Adam DiMaria. I reside at 52 Cummings Avenue in Wethersfield. If I could just read a brief statement to you. So I'm in complete opposition to the town issuing a special permit for the applicant to allow the permanent storage of a 23-foot RV, 14-foot snowmobile trailer, and 16-foot boat in their yard. Until recently notified by letter, I had no idea the homeowner's intent was to permanently store these items in their yard. While the homeowner lives on Harding Street, you may know that Cummings Ave intersects with it, and my house is located directly across the street from where the homeowner has these vehicles parked. As such, I believe that I'm the single most affected homeowner. These vehicles are so large that the homeowner created a gate in their fence to move the vehicles in and out, which is directly across from the beginning of my driveway. I'm deeply concerned about the potential devaluation of the single biggest investment I've made in my lifetime, my home. I've worked very hard as well and saved up for many years to purchase a home in a residential neighborhood. I worry about the resale of my home, which could cost me thousands of dollars or even worse, turn away from prospective buyers if I choose to sell my house in the future. I do not think that it is fair to have to wake up in the morning and look out my living room bay window only to see an RV trailer and boat. The same goes for when I get home from work and want to unwind and watch the sunset with my girlfriend. As I expressed in the correspondence I submitted to you, including my own photographs, all three of these items are visible from any window on the front of my house, especially my living room bay window, which is where I spend most of my time when not at work. Although the homeowner submitted several photographs taken from a street view, the photographs I submitted clearly show that all three items are in clear view of my windows. As with any home, my home is built and sits on top of a foundation several feet high, which makes the view of these items much worse than the views from the street. This is a residential neighborhood. I strongly believe that the permanent storage of these items has a negative impact not only on me, but the integrity of our entire neighborhood and community as a whole. These items are unpleasant to look at, are an eyesore. There are other options for storing these items, such as a storage trailer and a storage facility. The homeowner is already in violation of the town's zoning regulations. They did not seek a permit from the town to have these items in their yard and still do not have one today. I was never notified by the homeowner of their intention to keep these vehicles and trailers stored in their yard permanently. I firmly reject the notion that the homeowner should be issued a special permit allowing the permanent storage of an RV, trailer, and boat in their yard directly in front of my house. As I wrote in my letter, I strongly believe that there are reasons that the town zoning regulations exist, and to be able to first violate them instead of asking the town for permission beforehand, and then second, ask for a special permit to make them go away, is deeply concerning for the integrity of our entire neighborhood. I asked this committee, if this situation were happening to you in front of your yard, how would that make you feel and what would you do? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there another member of the public that would like to speak on this matter? Nope. Very good. Okay. Would the applicant join us? And I'm going to take a moment to kind of express part of what I struggle with every time I go through these. When we get a special permit, it's something that's going with the land. It's not something we're giving to the applicant. If the applicant were to leave next week or move next week, the permit that was given it runs with that property, and the next person in could take care of their property in a much different fashion and still have 3 trailers on it, okay? So that's why we struggle, and it may also frame for you how the dialogue runs up here as we deliberate on it, okay? It's not specific to you. We're more concerned about how it affects the property long-term. All right? Are there questions for the applicant?
I guess I have one for Peter, maybe. The application is for 3 things, but would any of these be permitted as of right if they were the only thing there?
No, the issue in this particular case is the corner lot. So the property has front yard setbacks on Cummings as well as Harding, and as you can see from the plot plan submitted, all 3, the small snowmobile trailer, the boat and the trailer, and then the RV are all primarily parked in the front yard, which is on the Cummings side. In addition to that, the RV is oversized, so if the boat and its trailer or the snowmobile trailer were to be parked
In the back corner?
back left corner, if you want to look at it that way, or one of them, that would be okay.
Okay.
But the total of 3 is so you're really only allowed 1 of these.
Right.
And all of them are supposed to be parked behind the house. So in a corner lot, it's even more restrictive, and you have to be in that sort of left back corner behind the house.
And the limit is 18 feet?
And the limit is 18 feet. So I think the boat and the trailer and then the snowmobile trailer are under 18 feet.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's the RV that's oversized, but it's primarily the location is the bigger problem.
Peter, on the RV, if it were 5 feet shorter at 18, just as wide and just as tall, that would be allowed?
As long as it would be parked in that other
In the
back
back.
corner location. So, I mean, if you want to look at it, you know, allow them to park something in the back corner, you could allow, that as a condition or a modification.
No, I was just trying to get a handle on what would have been permissible.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Aren't there times that you approve a trailer over 18 feet to be parked in a driveway?
On some occasions, there have been permits issued for that, yep.
Okay.
Under the same premise, a special permit.
Right.
Right. So is it possible then to get approval for just the camper where it sits now?
So, yeah, so I mean, if you're, and by the way, anything you can help us, because you're asking for a lot, between one vehicle that's oversized and there's 3 of them, and none of them are in the right place.
I mean, to be honest with you, while I would love to have all 3 approved, the most important is the camper. It's the biggest investment I have. It's a very large investment. It's also the most difficult to find another place to store. So, the snowmobile trailer, I can get rid of if need be. I would love to get approval for the boat and the camper, but if I couldn't do that, I would certainly take the camper, but where it sits now. I understand that it is visible from certain angles, but it kind of is what it is. And I guess my point is that if you've in the past approved for a driveway, it is certainly less visible than if it were in a driveway.
So I'm trying to remember where we approved one in a driveway, but it would be a very, very special situation where nobody lived near them, kind of a thing, so.
There's a trailer off RV Drive that's longer than his, and we just got word from the people that own it that they got approved, and they were giving a hard time as well. Yeah, we've seen it, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to take sides, I'm just
So,
saying they did get approved, and it's bigger than his.
I'm not familiar with it, so,
Familiar with that one.
so, I'm not familiar with that at all. But I appreciate the heads up, we'll look into it. further along that fence line, arborvitae's elevated, or some additional screening? Because obviously we have concerns from your neighbors.
I certainly could. I actually did look into arborvitae's, planting arborvitae's in front of the fence. Obviously, that's not an immediate thing. They are fairly fast growing. I could get 5-foot ones in a couple of years. It would screen out, but you know, to get 8-foot ones is prohibitively expensive. But I would be willing to certainly do that if that's what it took.
How high is your trailer right now? How high is
The
that?
camper,
The camper, excuse me.
I believe it is about 9 feet.
Okay.
So I basically was getting, we were questioned about what would you, what have we approved in the past? I'll tell you some of the things that we have been lenient with in the past. We've allowed temporary situations where someone was planning to get rid of it for, you know, in 2 years, or they just got it and, you know, it's only a temporary situation. We have discussed with other property owners times of year, and that goes to the question I asked you before. If you're only using it for 6 months of the year, you know, maybe there's a solution there where it's not on the property for 6 months,
I
stuff like that.
understand what the ordinance calls about the back corner of the property, but I also do feel that being on a corner property, I'm a bit of a disadvantage. I don't have a backyard, so to speak.
Yep.
There's no place I can put it. There's literally no place I can put it where somebody can't see it from the street.
Yep.
Short of building a 16-foot fence, which nobody wants.
Right, right.
So there is no place I can put it. If I was in a typical backyard and could maneuver it around the backyard where the only people could see it, I guess would be my backyard neighbors, but I can't.
Can't you move it to another side of your backyard?
No, because it's
Yeah.
still the backyard. People can still see it from Cummings.
Is your backyard fairly straight, fairly level, or is it higher? It seems to me that the camper is parked on the highest part of your I couldn't tell what your backyard looks like.
I
I thought-
I believe it's fairly level. I mean, there's no enormous
Right,
grade
there's not an
changes.
enormous, yeah.
No.
Hey,
Okay.
I just have a practical question. If you
Mhm.
planted the arborvitae, I think you would do it on the street side of the fence?
Yes.
Would that then interfere with your ability to get the camper in and out
Well, I
of the?
couldn't park it in front of the gate,
Because the gate's
obviously.
right there.
Right.
But I could
Right.
park
Swing
that
in
on
the
either
gate.
side of the gate, but I obviously couldn't park, I mean, I have to have a gate to get it out. Without a gate, I can't get it out. I don't care how small it is.
So would you have to move the location of the gate, in other words, then, to
Right.
make it
Well,
work?
still, it would have to, I still couldn't plant anything in front of the gate regardless of where the gate was.
Right, but I'm just thinking if you planted it in front of your neighbor across the street's view, in theory, could you shift
But
the
then the
gate?
camper comes out of that little alcove, which is blocking it as much as possible from the, I mean, one of the reasons it's in that alcove is because it makes it very, nearly invisible from the front,
Right,
but
and you can't make a turn to
No, I
go to
can't
a
make
gate that's not a
no,
head-on
no, that's
shot,
correct.
okay.
That's
Okay,
correct.
sure.
Like, there is no place in my yard I can put it where it's completely invisible.
Do you know what the price of the arborvitae's are?
So,
About $70 a piece.
thank you. Excuse me, sir.
I'm asking some practical questions.
But you can't speak them out from there, so I'll invite you to come up in a moment, okay? But right now, it's the applicant's turn to talk to us. Okay, so bear with us for just a moment. Were you in the middle of asking some questions?
Who me?
Somebody was kind of talking at the time.
Well, I
Right.
did think that, I thought about screenings also when I took a look at the property and just your application. And it did seem that it would be a little difficult to screen where the camper's parked, because that's where your gate is, just as Commissioner
I mean,
Hammond
I
said.
could do it on either side, so from any angle other than straight on, it would block it.
Yeah.
It would screen it, if nothing else. It would make it it would filter it, if anything.
I guess that's.
So, I don't know how others on the committee are feeling. I'm not real supportive of such requests to begin with. I'm not sure that screening is the solution. and it's a big ask. I kind of already implied that. I'm going to do the math for you. You need 5 positive votes to get approval. There are 8 here. That's a pretty good number already, but if if a 4th person votes it down, you wouldn't get approved, all right? So, I mean, personally, I'm thinking the ask is too big. We could spend a lot of time here trying to figure out what the right solution is, or we could just say, why don't you go home tonight and take the next couple weeks to figure it out, work with Peter and staff, and see if there's something smaller that you could be asking us. You kind of talked about it yourself, that your preference is for the big vehicle. That's, of course, the biggest lift, but, if there was some other proposal that you would make and come back next time and talk to us about it. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, that to me seemed to be where the applicant was heading in his remarks a few minutes ago. And I think that might be the most reasonable course of action for him under the totality of the circumstances. There's no guarantees that even if he comes back with an amended plan, that would be approved. But as things stand now, I tend to think that the commission would have a difficult time mustering up the necessary votes to approve all 3 vehicles.
Yeah, I do too.
So I would have to go back, I can't just remove the 2 now, I have to start over again?
No. Just what we would do, the process is, there's a public hearing going on right now, right? We're taking everybody's comments and thoughts. And then after we've gotten all the information, we close the hearing and then deliberate. What we're saying is, we'll leave the hearing open. You go back and work with Peter over the course of the next couple of weeks, come back to the next meeting, or if you need more time, some, personal conflict to come back 2 weeks from now, it's okay. I think we could go out a month. And the bottom line is come back and talk to us again about a revised proposal. Okay? There's something else I was going to say. Oh, so one of the other things that we've done, again, is that we typically talk about durations on these things. And again, that's for the other property owner's protection. It's kind of a pain in the neck for the property owner, right? But for everybody else around you, if you leave town and you turn the property over to somebody else and somebody else brings in a different trailer, now in theory, they've got to have a trailer effectively the same size, but they could have 3 trailers that are effectively the same size, remove the fence, keep the yard a pig pen, all sorts of things, right? So we talk about durations on these sometimes, okay? So keep that in mind as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, I guess I would just say, Tom, it seems to me, hypothetically, if we were approving an application like this, it seems to me in the conditions, we could make clear that one of them is keeping the fence up, et cetera, et cetera, and then if somebody else came in and took it down, they'd be in violation.
Correct, yes, yeah. By the way, as we talk about making a motion to continue this hearing, if there's something that, is help the applicant, if you've got some thoughts besides screening, I've talked about time, if in your minds something's a non-starter, say it now so that he can go back and try and craft the right plan that's going to pass or not, okay?
The only thing that I can indicate, one of my big concerns was that looking at a special permit, we have to look at the compatibility of the neighborhood. And even though you have the smaller vehicles, it's the accumulation of 3 vehicles which bothers me. And that is a big concern of mine. So I just wanted to let you know.
All right.
The screening, duration, those are things we can talk about, but
Okay.
I don't know what I'm going to go, but
Right.
that's
Right.
a huge
And-
concern.
And for me, it's the accumulation, but also the largest one, right? I think if there were 2 there and they were both small and they were behind a fence, fine. Getting rid of the big one, even if it's just 6 months of the year, might work for me, but I'm struggling with the big vehicle period, right?
That's a whole other
That's-
story, but
Well, I'm
Yeah.
trying to tell the applicant where I kind of sit without taking votes on it. All right?
Have people ever done,
The next meeting is September 20th. We usually meet on Tuesdays, okay? This is it.
have people ever done a kind of like an enclosure that's attached to their home to fit, like it's not, obviously their garage is too small to fit this.
Like
but
a
they have this
temporary
little alcove
hoop house or
that's-
something?
Like, is that something that's possible that people have done in the past?
Depends on the size, because we have a size limitation, so
Like, he
200.
would still obviously need like you know, a permit to go through
Mhm.
this, but it would at least look like it's, you know, well more hidden. I'm just curious if that's ever been done before, I'm not.
Well, then people come in and ask for an additional backyard garage.
Right.
You know,
Okay,
greater than the 850 feet, so they can put things like these indoors.
so you end up with,
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
you end
different
up creating
special
more
permit.
issues than you solve.
Okay. So I did offer one more comment, if you want to.
If you were to do the screening, you have the double gate. Obviously, you can't plant anything in front of that.
Mm-hmm.
And do you realize how long it takes apple bodies to grow?
About 18 inches a year.
No, 6 inches.
Okay, well,
I did an excellent
I don't,
paper.
I don't want to get into an argument about it, but
No.
you're right, it takes time. Your point is valid.
Just
Takes time.
stating a fact
Yep.
that I know. So,
right.
I just want the board to know my opinion on that. So the gate will not be screened.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, sir.
One other thing.
Can, do you think we're getting this? Could you come up and use the mic for us? Well, use the mic, because we are recording it and notes have to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm a reasonable person. I'm a responsible homeowner. And, you know, I'm not steadfast after knocking everything down these people have done. I'm in agreement with many of the neighbors. They've done great things. They put up a beautiful fence. They're taking care of their property. So am I. What I would say is, you know, I mean, what they want is, I believe what they want is the biggest trailer that is in question. I would honestly be okay with the other two small, the small snowmobile trailer and maybe or the boat, but this enormous RV is really the issue, and I think that even coming up with some kind of workaround on that issue alone, I'm not going to support that. It's too big. I see it directly out of my window every single day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
I certainly don't want to turn this into it, but the truth is, if that camper was 18 feet long and parked there, it would look exactly the same way from his front yard. You know, if it would be the same width, it would be the same height, it would look exactly the same from his front yard. And I understand that possibly that it's not the most attractive thing, but some people don't find purple houses attractive, or metal sheds, or derelict cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have one
I
question?
did, because I thought the same thing, that if it was 5 feet less, that would be acceptable in the backyard. But my question is because it's a corner lot, what is the front yard and what is the backyard? Is the front yard on Cummings?
It's both. He has
Both
two front
are
yards.
the-
Setback.
It needs to be in the far back quarter of the property,
Which would
effectively.
still be visible.
That's one of the reasons we have to
visible.
take case by case and look at them. It's just the way it is.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last comments? Otherwise, do I have a motion?
So moved.
The motion is to continue the public hearing? Thank you.
The September 20th here, 7 PM.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Next item, sounds similar. Public hearing for application 1923-16-Z for Michael, even the first names are the same, and Diane Slaman. Sorry, seeking a special permit in accordance with section 3.5 accessory uses of the Wethersfield zoning regs to park a vehicle, a minibus, larger than permitted in a residential zone at 26 Cumming Avenue. If you would join us, sir. And if you could do the same thing the prior applicant did,
Sure.
introduce yourself and then give us a brief summary of what's going on.
Good evening, members of the council. Not too long ago, me and my wife purchased a minibus. We were gonna get a van, but it was already sold from under us. So we're in the process of trying to turn it into a recreational vehicle. It is just a little bit past 21 feet long. We are not trying to start a business, and there's no lettering on the vehicle. It is parked in the rear of our driveway, which happens to be fenced in. It is not visible unless you are really looking for it. It is just a little bit over 18 feet long, which I just mentioned is 21 feet. And we would never put anything in our yard that would be an eyesore. We take care of our vehicles that we own, we take care of our property, and our property is fenced in all the way around. And our vehicle is on the side of the house where it's not visible unless, like I said, you're looking for it. If you're coming down the street and looking for it and it bothers you, we can also just push it back a little bit more. But we have photos that we've presented to you, and our intentions are purely for our recreational use only. Many of our neighbors we have spoken to say they never really even noticed it. We have maintained signatures from our surrounding neighbors not objecting to it. We hope the council will approve our permit to keep it on our premises. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant? So this is in the front yard, in the driveway. You say there's a fence to get to the backyard, and I think when I went by it, you do have a fence, right? Can you get it to the backyard?
It's all the way around, the fence is on both sides, all the way into the back.
And in the back too,
whole-
yeah.
It's all fenced in.
It's all fenced
From the
in.
street, we had it more to the street, but someone complained, so we had to take some sections out, so it's.
Oh, the fence,
if you-
yeah.
If there's a picture, I tried to get a picture, it's all the way
Yep.
like that in the back and the other side, so.
So you can't push the vehicle into the backyard?
Well, we can push it more if we
It's
need
almost to
be.
where the shed is, but if need be, if we had extended
If we had to
driveway,
push it back more, we could.
we would do that. It's really like about 2 feet away from the shed that's back there.
Yeah, because we're gonna get rid of that shed anyways.
Would that allow you to bring it more towards the backyard? like
Absolutely,
turn
sure.
around-
Yeah.
turn
And plus,
around
we
the
have a tree in the back we're gonna get
Well,
taken
the
out too.
7 feet, my husband hasn't, I probably can't see the tree in that picture. but-
Yeah, that's what
See
I
the
was-
tree? Yeah, we're taking that out.
So there's gonna be no room, so if need be, we could make more of a drive, because our driveway's so long anyway, just go further
Absolutely,
back
yeah.
and put it, because we don't want it to bother anybody, so we try not to make anything.
Yeah, because I would never go against the town's ordinances. I mean, I've worked for Hughes Brothers when they used to be open. That's how much I respect the town. The owner was a good man.
The 6-foot, just so I'm clear, the 6-foot white fence that we see in this picture goes all the way around the back of the property, across the back as
Yeah,
well?
well, the back,
Well, the
well, the
back-
back is wood fence.
The back is when we first came there, it was stockade, and then after I retired, I put fence on both sides, the whole white is on the other side too.
Well, I paid for one side, you did the other.
But the fence across,
But anyway, it's off fenced in. We could do the front if we could, but they said you can't, because it's the property in the front, because I wanted
Yeah.
to do the front.
so the fence in back is a wood stockade
Stockade.
type,
Like the-
six-
the points on
Yeah,
it.
and plus our neighbors behind us put one up there too.
6-footer?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
basically.
the tall thing.
Hey, we're just one of the Partridge family had to go through this.
I don't know.
With their butts.
Yeah, with their bus. I'm sure.
I actually got the reference.
I assumed it was but I have no knowledge.
Other questions? I mean, the bottom line is, if it's in the front yard, it's even a step, arguably, more of a problem than the last applicant, because it's in the front yard, technically. That's why I'm looking for,
Oh, no, ours isn't on the front, it's in the back.
well, it's on the side at the moment.
It's in the back
That's-
though.
So backyard according to the regs is behind the house,
Right.
okay?
Right,
So,
it's almost to where the
Oh.
back of the porch, or back
Yeah.
of the porch is. Yeah, and
Is it in the corner,
all the
right
way
there
in.
in the corner of your,
All the way at the end, yeah.
like right here where you're showing it?
Mhm.
Like-
I got it on my phone if you want to see a picture.
I think it's showing.
Just sounds like it's possible to move it
yeah, right
if the shed is no longer there, if they
Move the
can
house.
Right there, the shed's,
move it back.
the shed's being taken down
That's-
because it's falling apart anyways.
Mhm.
Okay, if there are no questions for the applicant, it does seem rather straightforward. I'll open it up to public comment again. All right, so if you folks would relinquish, is there somebody here to speak on this application? Nobody came out? Okay. I think there are a couple letters. Let me see if I can get to them. There are actually a number of letters, they seem to be form letters, and they're all in support. Steve Babineau, 560 Knott Street, in support. Ashley O'Neill at 32 Cummings. Bob DeGregorio at 20 Cummings. I'll be darned if I can tell this one. This is handwritten. Ray Wiley at 113 Crystal. Thank you. Chelsea Bourne at 120 Crystal. Aldo Mantilla at 114 Crystal. And Mr. Philip at 119 Crystal. All of those are no objection, anyways, to the minibus. Ah, very good. Like to join us?
Again, Pamela Fitzgerald, 108 Harding Street. I'm in support of it.
Thank you. All right. Oh, yep, sure, come on.
I'm Trevor Horn, 102 Harding Street.
I'm sorry, missed your name?
Trevor Horn,
Thank you, Trevor.
from 102 Harding Street, and I am also in support of it. Never noticed the vehicle beforehand, so.
Thank you. Okay, if the applicant would join us again, yep, come on up. So you guys are a real talkative group. I guess we need George.
Careful what you wish for.
All right. So, I mean, I'm still struggling with the fact that technically it's in the front yard. So, if you can take down the shed and move it to the backyard, it's 22 feet. It still clearly needs a permit because it's more than 18 feet.
Sure.
But if you get it in the backyard, behind the house, you know, and with all the support, but
When you say the backyard, you mean like, with the fences, that's as far back as we can put it, right?
Right.
That's possible, because it's only a couple of feet more if we had to put a little bit of a driveway and put it there.
so it doesn't have to be on the driveway as far as the commission is concerned.
Oh, yeah, grass if it wanted.
That's correct. Well,
Well,
you,
put stones
does that have
out.
to be on gravel? Yeah, I mean, you know, you might want to put down some gravel or something, but,
It's nice for it to go back more. As I
S-
said, the shed's going down on the 17th, so.
so how big, how deep is your backyard from the 20, 25 feet? Thank you. So I'll read it off. It's 25 feet from the back of the house to the fence.
Maybe 30 feet, actually.
Maybe 30?
25 plus 5.
Okay. So there's enough room to put in theory, I mean, I don't know the rest of your yard, right? In theory, there's room to take the 22-foot vehicle and move it to the back and put it up
Yeah.
against the fence and be behind the house,
Yeah,
right?
there is.
So that would make me at least a little more comfortable about going forward with this, personally. I
Okay.
don't know how everybody else feels about it, but,
No, I agree.
Right.
It's fenced around, it's all the way to the end.
Yeah.
all right.
The white fence goes all the way in. There's a
All the way to the back,
stockade.
and there's a stockade in the back, and there's another white fence.
And on the other side, on the right, it's all,
That's your fences on the
Our
other side.
fences, yeah.
yeah. You put them up.
Are there any other comments for the applicant, or are we ready to close the public hearing?
Uh,
Tom, please.
Just one thing to be clear about. You're proposing to essentially modify your application to provide for an extension of your driveway into the rear, back to the back property line of your property. Is that
If need be, yeah.
correct?
I think so, yeah.
So,
They thought that that was necessary, that's not because.
yeah, I want to suggest that's not what I was suggesting. I don't necessarily care that they take a blacktop or even a gravel driveway back there.
Even my husband can put some stones.
It's,
They were just
argu-
offering that up because they thought that it needed to be on the driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
proposing to do it, if you want to, but if it would help, we would do it.
Yeah.
I was looking here in terms of those neighbors that have endorsed your application. And it looks like the two property owners that would be most affected by
Actually,
your application would be if you take it really into the back of your property line, would be 21 and 29 Spruce Street. And I noticed that neither of those neighbors have, had any comment or contact or endorsement.
I had somebody call my house up that lives over there and said he didn't think that there should be a problem with anything. He says, I don't know why you have to have.
Actually, the lot, there's a man that lives behind us, and then right behind that whole lot, it's empty, he owns it, but there's no house there, it's an added
It's
lot,
just, just been empty for
Not
years.
even a house, so when you look over the fence where the back of the bus would be, there's no house there, it's just land. He bought that property and I guess there's land.
Came with the house.
He has like a, yeah.
I guess my concern is you noted that you'd be taking down that tree in behind and you push the RV all the way to the back.
Mhm.
I think it'd be extremely visible to 29 Spruce potentially. Again, this is, we're speculating here, but
Yeah, well, I
that
got
tree
like,
right now is screening what you have there.
yeah, well, I got like vines right over there where the fence is.
Well, is that your tree
There's
or
like,
theirs?
there's a
In
pricker
other
kind
words,
of,
there's all kinds of, there's a lilac tree, bushes
Yep.
all along the fence in the back anyway, so the tree isn't really blocked. There's more bush back there.
yeah.
You can't even see, we can't even see the neighbors when we walk back to the back. We can't see them, even though there's a fence, there's all these bushes. So it's not like it's just a tree blocking everything. We're just trying to get the tree out of the way because it's hanging over our house.
Yeah.
I drove by the neighborhood, and the back is, because of the fence and everything, I mean, I have less problem with the neighbor behind the fence than I do, the side yards and, the people across the street, so on and so forth. I think,
Now, the
to
lady right
me,
next
after
door
looking
had-
at it, it's the least objectionable problem, with this application. And it's just gonna move it all the way back, to the fence. That's more in line with our regulations and what we're looking for under the existing. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna change in the future, but under the existing regulation. That's, I have a little problem with it.
We did speak to the lady right next door to us, and she came over and she said she didn't even notice it was there, she had no problem. She was glad my husband.
And the
had it.
neighbor behind us too, that was diagonally behind us. He's like,
So is that,
he's gonna move anyways out, so he didn't care.
And the man on
So,
this side of us
32
on the right, the fence is
Yeah.
is 32, is number 32, the person to the left of you, are they,
Ashley O'Meal.
yeah, that's,
Either one of the
that's,
signers?
Yeah,
yes, it is one of the signers.
yeah.
Okay.
And the man on the other side, he says he can't even see it because the fence blocks his whole view.
Okay.
He doesn't
see the
care.
house.
Other questions for the applicant? All right. No additional comments out there? Thank you very much. Or any last thoughts? Okay. Could I hear a motion?
Move to close the hearing.
Thank you.
Second?
We need George, we really do. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All righty. Thank you, folks. You can have a seat. We're going to deliberate on this, I believe. All right. Anybody care to make a motion to discuss?
I'll make a motion that we approve of the application for a special permit with a special condition that the vehicle will be parked in the rear of property adjacent to the rear fence.
And appreciate that. And would somebody like to second it?
we approving a, if I don't mind, a size and a timeframe?
So we can talk about that. But,
I'll second.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk, because I also have some thoughts about the motion as well, right? I would want to make sure that the fence stays there all the time, right? It's in the back. We can talk about a duration or not. I guess I could go either way. Again, because it runs with the property, right? So the next person can put a 22-footer back there, but not be as good about the rest of the property. So we can talk about a duration as well.
The only thing with as long as the fence is there, I mean, that's the big thing. I
Yeah,
apologize. I
I
should have
agree.
put that in as I think it's important because the way it's screened. We have to look at these on a case-by-case basis, and this certainly lives up to the spirit
Mhm.
of what the commission is looking for in the regulation.
Okay. Other thoughts? So if we if we added to the motion the fact that it needs to maintain the fence three sides on the property,
Yes.
that, we'll just say at least a minimum of 6 feet, assuming that that's what's there today, right? Tom?
Historically, when we've approved these kinds of things, there have been some time limitations, so we don't get in the situation of this, if the applicant moves and he's replaced by another person in which this permit would be running with the land. So I'm having a difficult time approving any motion for these kinds of things, given the state of our regulation. But the absence of a time limit on a special use permit of this type bothers me considerably.
Fair enough. Are you guys?
2 years?
I have no objection to that.
To what?
3 years?
Good idea.
Can Peter remind us what we've done in the past? It's been all over the place, right? 3 years, 5 years?
There's no consistent, some, had situations where they realized they weren't gonna keep it for more than a year or two, and you've limited it to that. I think, if my recollection is correct, the most would have been a 5-year timeframe. So 3 is obviously somewhere in the middle.
Does that create a bookkeeping nightmare for you?
Yeah,
here in
it
town?
It does. I mean, it is something we'll have to, track and remind, obviously the applicants, they're really their responsibility, but nevertheless, it does create, particularly if staff changes or something else happens, but we can manage that.
I wouldn't be opposed to, a 5-year limit on it to ease the bookkeeping requirements for the town. That would seem to be an adequate amount of time for example, the applicant to obtain a fairly long term of utilization of a declining value piece of property, and allow for him to trade it in or to dispose of it in some fashion at the time when that would expire. I recognize it's a considerable investment on the part of the applicant, and I would tend to think that a 3 to 5 year term would be reasonable under the circumstances.
Personally, I could go with 5 myself, but I don't disagree with the time limit. So you guys made the motion in the site. You like 5 too? You're
I
okay
like
with it? All right. So 5 years is on the motion?
I don't like the 5 years, but
Versus what, 3?
Consensus.
Versus 3?
Yeah, I think that the 3 is unreasonable. I'm not happy with 5 years. As long as it doesn't run with the land, I agree with that, while he owns the property. But if there seems a consensus for, a 3 or 5 year, I will go along with the 5 year.
I'll second.
All right.
Yeah, it runs with the land.
Yeah, it does run with the land.
Okay, so we have a motion that includes its approval, it's a fenced yard on 3 sides, it's a 5-year duration. Did I miss anything?
Do we need to say anything about
in
the
the
shed in
No.
order to get it back?
So in the back, and the presumption is the shed is
The
gone.
presumption is that the shed on the 17th is going down,
Right.
Yes.
All righty.
so we don't have to include it.
They do have to get it to the back, so.
In order to get it to the back,
Plow it
they
through the
have to do
shed,
that.
right?
They have to remove the shed to
Drag
get
the
it back.
shed across the yard.
All right.
Oh, can I just say one thing?
Hearing's
No.
closed.
Uh,
Yeah,
tech-
you
The guy
can-
cutting the tree, coming to cut the tree, he's gonna cut the tree first, and then we're gonna get the shed out of there. Because you know what happened, a couple weeks ago, I got stung by bees. in the
Okay,
shed.
Provided.
The shed's gone.
okay,
I don't wanna go through that again.
Should
okay,
we add
fair
something
enough.
about bees?
I got another shed.
No,
It's gonna be on another side of the yard.
Beekeeping
Fair enough.
permit.
Suspect they're
Okay,
hornets,
so-
not bees.
it's whatever you want to do,
Yeah, I put stones.
whatever you want to do. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and the parameters. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. You neutral?
I said aye.
Thank you. Very good, okay. You have your permit, you can do any, you can put gravel down if you want to, that's up to you, right?
We can do that after they get the tree down.
So these guys will keep track of you, they're gonna wanna see progress toward making it happen.
Oh, Peter, all the time, yeah.
All right,
You don't bother.
all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
The sign, will we bring the sign? out the front lawn
Tomorrow, yep.
tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay, we'll do that.
All right.
We're good?
We're good,
Very good.
we're good.
Thank you.
can- So, fair enough, you guys can leave if you want. We're gonna, oh, fine, go ahead, be my guest. Yes, you're all set.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. We do have an opportunity for public speaking, so just bear with us, let us, and we'll get you up to the mic. All right. All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
So, it's a little out of order, but be my guest, come up and talk.
I can just,
So-
I called. I had called the town last week regarding an RV on 117 Harding Street. It's greater than 18 feet long. It was confirmed by the town. It's in visible sight of the street. It's parked on the side of the house. Has been a permit been granted to the homeowner?
What number?
117.
There is no 117. It was 101, 107, 113, 119.
Oh, I'm sorry, 107.
107.
Okay. Peter?
I believe they were issued a citation by the zoning officer. They have contacted him and are considering submitting an application or
Or moving it?
or deciding to move it. So that's up in the air
Okay.
right now. It's
I
in the,
just didn't know where that stood.
so if you're within 300 feet and they do decide to apply, you will get another notice in the mail.
Yeah, I live right behind them.
Okay,
Okay,
sure.
thank you very much, Board.
Thank you. And could you do me a favor? What was your name again?
John Tremblay,
Thank you.
108 Crystal Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
All righty. So we've kind of opened up a public comment. Is there something that you wish to add? Okay, then we'll move on with the agenda. Is there other business, Peter? Sure. Take care. Good night, folks.
Yeah, I did send you, if you want to handle it under staff reports or whatever, I did provide you with a kind of a report on the issue at hand tonight, which is apparently all we're going to talk about. So boats, RVs, trailer parking, so I don't know if you want to take care of that
Sure, go
or
ahead.
start discussing that, but I did provide you with a copy of some information that at least I found kind of interesting in terms of our history of our zoning regulations. So I also took a look at how many permits have been issued over the last couple of years by this commission as well as by the Zoning Board of Appeals in the past, and actually the numbers are literally identical, 13 applications, literally a couple every year. And then also, I provided you with some information on how some of the surrounding towns handle this. Particularly of interest to me is the history of the regulations here. There was, up until relatively recently, a process where folks could go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. There were some criteria that the Zoning Board of Appeals would consider when considering having boats and such over the 18 feet in length or parked elsewhere on the property. So I found that to be pretty interesting now that we're potentially talking about going back to that particular concept. This has been discussed. As I said, the history goes back to 1961 when the regulations were first put in place. There was a proposal in 1990 to up the limit to 25 feet. There didn't seem to be any particularly strong feeling, so it was kept at 18 feet. And then in 2004, the regulations that you have in place now were adopted. As I said earlier, I did look at Newington, Glastonbury, Manchester, Cromwell, East Hartford, Windsor. I also spoke to West Hartford in the last couple days to get a handle on their regulations, and they're all a little bit different. I was surprised to know that Glastonbury doesn't have a size limit. Not necessarily surprised because they have, 2-acre plus zoning, so there's lots of real estate out there. But nevertheless, you hear that Glastonbury's pretty restrictive, but they do not have a limit as long as it's pretty much parked in the backyard, not in the driveway, that kind of thing. Manchester didn't have a lot to provide us with in terms of information. Cromwell is pretty permissive that you can have two. It can be 35 feet in length, can be parked in the driveway. So if you have an RV that's oversized and you're looking to move, maybe
Cromwell seems
Cromwell.
like a good place to
Cromwell's
be,
your
right?
town.
If we'd known that a couple weeks ago, we would.
Not that I want to promote Cromwell, but East Hartford has some pretty specific definitions, which is probably something we should have too. Our regulations have been on the books for a long time. They don't really, there's different kinds of, there's motorhomes, camp trailers, pop-ups, but East Hartford has a 30-foot limit, which is also surprising to me because I think East Hartford has some pretty small lot sizes in certain areas of town. They do have a distance requirement so that it has to be a certain separation from adjoining properties. So Windsor, 25-foot limit. So just, I was looking to at least provide you with this information. Not that we have to decide anything tonight, but if you are interested in having the present regulations modified and a process started to do that, then I was just hoping to get some guidance, maybe tonight. If not, we can bring it up at a future agenda after you've had time to think about it. West Hartford, although I didn't include that in here, does not have specific regulations. I spoke to their zoning officer, and he basically said the way they practically handle it, you can have boats, RVs, trailers. If they're in a garage, no one can see them. Obviously not an issue. And they will only enforce the regulations if they get a complaint. So they don't actively drive around town seeking these things out, but as a policy matter, if someone complains, then they will enforce the regulations, which the regulations basically say you can't have any of those, no matter what the size is, parked outside. So, so that's.
So you're just rolling the dice.
I'm surprised they admitted
So
that.
yes.
I just want to say, Peter, and this is, as always, you guys have always done a thorough job. This is really fantastic, and it goes above and beyond what we would typically see. So I definitely commend you. It's really nice.
Ditto.
So now what do you want?
Probably Denise.
Now what do you want to
So
do?
I was going to say, yes,
However.
yes, I want to change, but I don't know that
I
I
don't
have
care
any
what it
firm-
is, as long as it goes to
We started this discussion 2 weeks ago, and already I see coming up, there are two more, and it seems like we're gonna get two, per. And by the time we get around to doing something, we're gonna have 6. And under law, once you make an application, they're grandfathered in.
Mhm.
So I'm suggesting that maybe we pass, as we're looking at, some kind of a moratorium, for a few months to give us a chance to look at this. Otherwise, we're gonna be besieged. And I'm certainly not gonna tell the zoning enforcement officer to stop enforcing the zoning ordinances.
It's interesting, I can remember, I'm gonna just go like this and go 5, 6 years ago, I thought we would have a run on commercial vehicles with neighbor turning in neighbor. It didn't happen, which was good, but it's beginning to happen here, right? And I guess I wondered just how big this will grow, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I can kind of understand the point of the moratorium, but the consequence of that would be that, no one can ever get permission for something and they're always in violation. And there may be circumstances where we want to give someone permission for something, like the second applicant today, where if there were a moratorium, we would have no alternative other than to either have it enforced or not enforced, which just means that when the moratorium expires, we're gonna have 24 of these.
I'd like to think we can act quickly. We're not gonna ask for a year moratorium or something like that. But, for a 60-day moratorium or something, just so we can have a chance to discuss it before all of a sudden we get more of these. And
Well, if you have a moratorium in place and you have a situation with a cease and desist based on a neighbor complaint, I mean, now we're telling people that if you make an application, you're covered, you're dealing with it. So if there's a 2 or 3 month moratorium and they can't deal with it, what does that mean? Does that mean they're gonna be asked to remove it immediately, or does that mean the neighbors just have to live with it for 3 months without us reviewing it? So I guess that would be my only
Yeah.
thought on
Yeah,
a
I mean, that was
moratorium.
kind of what I was trying to
Yeah.
get at inarticulately.
it's a difficult issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they could still, and if we had a moratorium, technically, couldn't they still go to the ZBA and get a variance, if they could supposedly prove hardship, right?
Probably depends on how we write the moratorium language, but might also prohibit them from going to I mean, also, in order to get a moratorium in place, we still have to go through a public hearing and notice and,
Yeah.
have a
That's right, you
discussion
can't do
about
that,
it.
right.
So, do you want to do that or spend your time,
Changing.
relatively quickly, having a hearing on changes? I think that's probably now that we've researched this, we have a good inventory of what other towns are doing. We could probably expand upon that and get a better, I like just for the point of having
Discussing what the
discussion,
issues are, right?
I like, it sounds like there's a general feeling that these applications are better handled by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
As long as they don't have to, because I don't understand hardship
Yeah.
discussion, right?
So,
it
when
can't be a hardship
when I say
discussion.
go to Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm kind of thinking that, like in the old days, people would get a special exception, which is the same thing as a special permit. And there were criteria for those applications to guide them when they're reviewing them. That would be, rather than it be a variance. That's
Right.
my first thought. If we're going to give it to ZBA, let's not make it a variance and they have to prove hardship and all that. Let's go back to the old regulations, take a look at those, dust them off a little bit, update them, and give them some guidance on the factors that they should be looking at when they review these things. How visible is it? Where it's located on the lot? Whether they're considering screening, those kinds of practical things so that they can go down the list and see if it's, how far it is from other structures, things like that give them some guidance in terms of making a decision on it. And then,
And that runs with the land too, right? All of,
Yes,
both
same
of
thing.
these commissions
Yep.
make decisions that run with the land, right? So-
same exact,
And I think that's, if I just may add, I was thinking too, that if you had whether we have the guidelines or the zoning board of appeals, if there's guidelines, then there's consistency. So that when an applicant comes, they know what we're looking for. So if we say to them, have you looked at the options? Yes, I've looked at screening, I've looked at this, and here's why I can't do that.
Right.
Because I do get concerned about, am I being consistent with each application? And I do tend to think like, oh, well, like in this last one, I knew that a lot of the neighbors were not opposed, just based on where it's located. Each site is unique. I mean, each location is unique, each size is unique, and And yet you still have the rules and regulations that you want to follow.
Yeah, if there wasn't a
So-
fence, and it was more visible, that you may have had a different
And it
decision.
wasn't a corner lot.
And it
which is
wasn't- right.
where we've had
Exactly.
Yeah.
considerable difficulties
Right.
in the past.
I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
One thought, and I'm not sure whether I'm correct or not, so I'll rely upon, my brother attorneys for this, but, both a special permit and special exception being items that run with the land, one of the things that we've, that I'm not sure that a special exception would permit would be time limitations on such a thing. I think there, with a special exception, it's a permanent matter that once it's there, it's there. I was thinking the possibility of having this become rather a license rather than a permit, in which the license would exist so long as that owner is there. But,
That would probably kick us into some sort of town ordinance rather than a zoning regulation. Maybe the lawyers can weigh in on this, but I think it's a different, you only have authority to issue certain kinds of permits. A license isn't a specific type of authorized land use permit.
It has been used in some
That's why I'm thinking,
zoning
right.
situations in various places in the United States. I wasn't quite sure
Yep.
about, Connecticut law on this.
But in terms of the running with the land aspect, can't we so specifically approve something that it is a, 1987 Winnebago Model XYZ, which means it's a certain width, it's a certain height, and it's a certain length, and it's not 18, maybe it's 19.7. If the next guy has anything that's any different from any of those measurements, technically, it does not qualify. So I think you can, in essence, deal with that issue that way. And I guess the only other point I would make, I guess this is a tougher area, it seems to me, because there's immediate consequences. We don't know how many of these situations are lurking and have existed for 10 years that are going to find their way here. So it's not like we have a clean slate where we can just say, we don't want anything of a certain nature. I think we have to just understand the consequence of our regulations could be affecting people before they ever get here, who've been in these situations for a long time. So we just have to be somewhat cognizant of that if we are devising specific things, I think.
Yeah, some of the regulations we did find also have very specific submission requirements. For example, they expect you to submit, the copies of the registration, spec sheets on the actual vehicle so that it's part of the application, as you mentioned, in terms of the year and the length and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to get carried away on this, but if we're going to provide this authority to ZBA, I think it's important enough that we provide them also with the tools to do as good a job as they can do in these cases. We have taken a look at how many of the trailers and these kind of things are registered in town, and it's a pretty significant number based on our preliminary. And interestingly enough, boats aren't locally, they're not on the local tax rolls. I think the state, I don't know how that works, but there's a wrinkle on that, so we're not sure how many boats are being stored here in town.
Peter, in terms of some of the specifics, I think some of the sources would be some of the regulations from the other towns that could be inspirations for some of the things that we're looking for. I'd also look back to the old ZBA things, because I saw there some qualifications that seem to ring true in terms of just things that are safety issues, such as hazardous chemicals, hazardous and flammable materials that may be stored in such vehicles.
Right.
That, and having prohibitions about that.
Sight lines, in terms of where they park them to make sure you're not creating there are, the old regulations did have some, they were a good starting point.
I guess one thought that occurs to me is that we may be able to kind of winnow out a lot of the drama by increasing the size of what is permitted as of right in the backyard. You know, most of these, you know, with a couple glaring exceptions, seem to be in the 19 to 25 foot range.
Right.
And if, you know, my neighbor has something in his backyard, it's 175 feet from my house, I can't really tell whether it's 18 or 22 feet long.
Right.
You know, if, as long as it's put where it's supposed to be with some kind of screening, you know, and it's not somebody's playhouse or, you know, summer home.
I think
That-
that's where some of the specifics that Joe was mentioning about, you know, as a prototypical model to put in an existing motorhome vehicle that had, you know, length of X amount of feet, width of Y amount of feet, height of Z amount of feet, you know, that might be termed a specific model or something.
Right.
I would tend to think that also looking at some of our past history, we've been presented with quite a number of applications where the vehicle has been in the, you know, 21 to 22 feet length, which isn't that much more than 18 feet. So, you know, expanding that length might be a possibility.
So I made a list of the topics, because Peter's looking for specific help, right? So we're all talking ZBA, we're all talking vehicle specificity, we're all talking guidance language, right? Property offsets, right? You thought that was probably helpful, right? So we're gonna talk about the size and the number. You know, we obviously are the shortest one, the most restricted.
And a parking stall is 20 feet, 9 by 20, or so you put it in that perspective, you know, you're talking about some vehicles or, you know, SUVs are larger than 18, you know. I was looking at the parking lot, but, you know, so
Yeah.
you gotta put it in that kind of perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
and the 18 looks like it had its genesis in boats,
Yes,
and that
Right.
probably was designed to prevent anybody from competing with Frank Morris's boat junkyard by... No, I mean, seriously, I
Maybe,
think that
right.
was at about the same time they were having a lot of complaints about what he was doing.
Would we want to throw something in, Tom, that talks about at least the consideration of screening where feasible, something along those
Definitely.
lines?
Yep, guidance
I
documents.
was told that one of the reasons that I wasn't here, that it was moved from ZBA, is that it was decided by this commission that they'd have more discretion. I personally like to see less discretion, have definite limits, and it is what it is. And, you know, everybody is aware, these are the rules, and if you have proper screening and you have the proper length, you're okay in the location. And you don't have to bother administrative boards with, you know, I'm 2 feet over, or, you know, that type of thing. Everybody knows what it is, knows what the rules are, and it's done. And we can deal with more important things. That's just,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that runs into the aim of having something that provides predictability to people in terms of what they can do, what they cannot do, what they can expect to be done.
So the way you just described it, I wonder if we can make that happen, right? Because you said of a certain length with the proper screening, and you don't get both without coming before someone and somebody making them screen. So I'm just wondering, are you suggesting that maybe it stays at 18 and we have a rule that is, you know, 18 by right, 25 by some secondary right, if the screening is available, if the zoning board, if the zoning official goes out and checks certain parameters? Is that what you're suggesting,
Well,
like a second step?
no, not definitely. I mean, I think we have to give some discretion to the, you know, to Peter or the zoning enforcement officer. Peter, really, sorry, but as far as is screening sufficient? Every application has to come before our board, is the screening sufficient? we're gonna be jammed with, whether or not, in this, I think that can be handled administratively.
I guess I'll counterpoint to that, I guess, is, typically we see this where it's neighbor against neighbor with a lot of opposition. There's some subjectivity into it. I think human nature, whether it's the ZBA, we always used to think the ZBA was more susceptible to this than we are, but if there's 100 people against it and one applicant, versus everybody who turns out is for it, I think that affects human nature, and I guess I'm concerned, I guess, if we give staff leeway, are we putting staff in a difficult position, because then you're gonna have a lot of unhappy people questioning some of these decisions, which are so fact-bound on what shape is the lot, is there trees, is there fencing and everything else, and nobody's ever gonna be happy. I hate to say it, but, at some level, doesn't it almost require a commission or a zoning board of appeals to deal with it just because of all those moving parts?
But on the other hand, any individual who's not happy with the zoning, with Peter or the department, can appeal that. That can be appealed. So that you're cutting down, because if Peter or whoever we deem with discretion, the applicant is not happy, they have a right to appeal that. So rather than having an appeal for each and every permit, someone would only hear appeals.
Except though the interested neighbors really don't have a forum to come and speak and say what they think if Peter's doing it, and then their only recourse is to hire a lawyer and spend a lot of money and go to court, basically. So I think that
And
should
lose
be
because
considered.
it's
Right.
discretionary
Right.
enforcement or not.
Yeah,
Right.
I wouldn't have staff have a lot of discretion with these things. I think that discretion rests with, if we give it to the ZBA, quite
and I
honestly.
think-
Because,
I
yeah,
think
there's
the
there's no
purpose of
process
the
for the neighbors to get
regulation-
notified, and, if it's all staff level, so it kind
I
of
understand you, Peter.
precludes that involvement,
Yeah,
but
the purpose of the regulations, it seems to me, is, number one, set a precise standard for what is going to be allowed. And then if there are going to be exceptions, then that's where the level of discretion in terms of a decision maker in which you have multiple interests at stake. You have the neighborhood folks, the particular applicant, property owner, and also from a larger perspective, the public interest at large. And so, there needs to be, in essence, two aspects for the regulations. One is, what is going to be permitted as a matter of right, and the second being, what are going to be the standards that are going to be applied in making a decision about making an exception.
And so what are the standards? It sounds like we're talking about standards that might be 25 feet-ish rather than the 18 as a right. Still the backyard, everybody's still in agreement there, backyard. The screening really doesn't come into play at that point. It's gonna be at a right in the backyard up to some length, maybe 25 was the right number. Right? The number, we're still talking one, right?
on the feet,
My concern is more people that own 25 footers now. You're gonna see a lot of people saying, well, I'm not gonna pay rent, I'm just gonna put it in my backyard. And again, speaking selfishly, I'm not sure I wanna see my neighbor put a 25 footer in his backyard. And I think that he can actually fit it back there. I live on a third of an acre, and I think Wethersfield's very, we're not living on 2-acre sites.
Yeah.
you
My
got,
concern is we're now gonna have more people,
that's
if
a
we
good
increase the length, because it's more common, 18-footers are, I think more people own that longer. That's my only
and
concern.
I think I agree with that. I would add to it, Old Wethersfield, to name one, down Church Street, Garden Street, you've got 5,400 square foot lots where there, to have a 25-footer would be as big as the house is practically. I mean, I think, I'm not sure one size fits all.
yeah, it might be
either.
based on certain zones and things like that.
Right.
Lot sizes.
It looks like in 1990, there was a proposal to increase it to 25, but for some reason, they stuck it at 18.
There just wasn't a strong push either to increase it, so they kept it.
But I think,
Yeah.
Tony, I agree with your point in the sense that if it's been 18 feet for 20 years, if you increase it by 1 foot, are you dragging people now to take advantage and jump on the bandwagon? We already have, it seems, enough problems with people who've been doing it without permits that we have to deal with. Do we want to encourage any more of it? So,
I'm not so sure that expanding it's going to encourage people when they're already doing it anyway. but it seems like if we expand the length of what would be allowed, you're simply legitimizing those folks that may have it. But I think my own, knee-jerk reaction is 25 feet is too long. 21 feet seems to be, where most of our problematic applications come into play.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, once you get past okay, you have to come to P and Z, it kind of falls into two categories. One is a property where it can go in the backyard, and, we just kind of breathe a sigh of relief and say, either, I hope the neighbors are okay with this, or, put it near the fence. Then there are the ones that, for whatever reason, cannot go in the backyard, and then we get the heartburn about what are we gonna do? So I think, maybe if we do it in such a way that if it can go in the backyard, there's certain standards that have to be met, that are maybe a little more lenient but objective, but that if it's gonna go anywhere other than the backyard, then I don't know what standards you can put in place that would be a universal solution. You run into the corner lot like this one, or you might have somebody that has, a swampy condition in their backyard, and it makes more sense to put it on the side, and, because of either trees or topography or the placement of the neighbors' houses, that's actually better for everyone than, having it sink into the backyard. So, I guess it's not really too helpful, but I mean, it does seem that those are kind of the two
different.
decision trees that we're gonna go down, once we get beyond the 18 feet in the backyard as of right.
In terms of going forward, I would probably draft something up and have a similar conversation before anything gets finalized, so that you guys don't have to worry about making a decision at a public hearing with, people speaking either for or against. So, I can probably get something drafted up in, a couple weeks, and maybe not by your next meeting, but the meeting after that, have something to specifically discuss, to give you something to really, sink your teeth into a little bit more specifically, so that we can have a more, focused conversation. And I think I've gotten a lot of good guidance and direction tonight with some of those comments. So don't be concerned that this would be the last opportunity to weigh in, because I think there's a lot of things that I'll factor into this and stick in a memo with some language for you to discuss a little further.
So I'm not really, I have never owned a trailer, so I don't know if what I'm saying has any validity. And I'm not necessarily making a big homework assignment for you.
Maybe we
but
should start a regulation on motorcycles then.
I don't know, other than my own, I don't know that I have a lot of information about that either, but maybe, does anybody know, is there some length of trailer that suddenly becomes taller, so that it becomes
I wasn't even going to complicate this,
bulk?
but there is an issue of, that we don't even deal with in terms of height.
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of riggings and things like that that can be really obnoxious. So I didn't even want to mention that, but it would probably be in the draft. Fortunately, the one we had tonight doesn't have any real rigging, so you can't even see it when it's on the trailer. It's down low. It doesn't, but there's some stuff, if you think of ski boats and that kind of thing, where they have, so that's probably, we don't deal with that now. So that's also something probably I saw in other regulations that I'll put in a draft for, so there'll be a height factor as well.
Yeah,
It's
if
not
you
just
have a
length.
sailboat, you have to lift it up above the keel
Right,
into the air,
Right.
and then,
Yeah.
right,
But some of these things are bigger than the house itself,
yeah.
And then, putting one of these in on a quarter-acre lot, it's just, even if it's by right in the backyard, it's.
So, we're kind of talking around the size, but maybe 18 feet is just fine, and just have the conversation on each and every piece, right?
Yeah, how to work around that, yeah. It makes sense in context with the situation.
Okay. Enough with that?
no, very good.
Minutes. Minutes. I know they're here somewhere.
August 16th. Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Anybody
any
want to
comments?
second that? I'll second it. All right. Any edits at all that you saw?
Yeah, I don't know, I looked at it a couple days ago, but I don't
Yeah,
think so.
no. I didn't, nothing jumped out at me either.
Good night.
All right.
George didn't send in any comments?
Yeah, right. George will tell us that, there were lots of comments when he reads it when he comes back next time. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Let's see, we have one.
Abstain.
2 abstains. Okay, so it means we still have 6.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. What else? Correspondence?
The only other thing is there's a letter from the Health District regarding a new statute that was approved regarding cottage foods in Connecticut in an effort to allow, some home cooking,
Jeez.
Yeah, so baked goods, jams, jellies, and various other non-potentially hazardous foods. I think, yeah.
Potentially non-hazardous.
Potentially hazardous.
Potentially
It's like a very
non-hazardous.
I don't want any
phrase.
hazardous
It is.
baked goods.
Yeah, the fact that the word hazardous is in here is a little disturbing, but
There's some hazardous jelly. Made it myself.
I guess previously they had to get, licensing from the health district and bring the kitchens up to a certain compliance. So whether it was an industry or a health district initiative, they've changed the regulations to basically, there are some requirements, but it looks like it avoids some more complicated licensing, at least through the health district. The ramification for us is that it's still technically probably considered a home occupation. And they specifically say here that if I can find it, must be sold directly to consumers, something like that.
So it becomes a food outlet,
So
too.
it becomes yes. I think these are mostly sold at, farmers markets and, rather than people coming to the house. But by the way it's written, it would look like someone could come. Obviously, in those scenarios, even though the health district wouldn't be licensing it, we probably have to have some conversations with them that it may still require a home occupation permit or something other than the way that I think the health districts would be looking at it. So I just bring that to your attention just for information, and we'll work with the health district to make sure we figure out a methodology to deal with these in the future, since they won't be dealing with them. Okay.
Will we
Yeah,
be?
one thing that jumped out when I looked at this is a particular substance that doesn't require cooking, but, is available, and that's a product of beekeepers, having a little stand out in front of your house where you're selling jars of, honey that the bees in your backyard have manufactured.
Well, it says this needs to be foods produced in a cottage setting. Does that count a beehive in the backyard? I don't think so.
No, I think that's an agricultural product.
I think that's why they say cottage setting, so it's like something
Yeah.
created in a kitchen.
Okay.
And you have to wear an apron while you're.
Yes, it must be on a
An apron
prairie.
and a
Frilly hat.
protective hat, yeah.
Plaid.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Cottage food operation.
Yeah.
It's weird that it says that.
Definitely weird.
So the only other
Cedar Mountain?
Jesus.
Cedar Mountain, application is getting withdrawn. They'll have to reapply the way they submitted it. We met with them yesterday about this, so we don't have anything. So I'll talk to the gentleman tonight about the hearing. So maybe it won't. I don't know if you want to just meet for that. Maybe we ask him to push that out to the first meeting in October. So at this point, you probably won't have a meeting next time around. So we'll work that out with them, see if we can do that.
Okay.
It looks like there was only one neighbor who was concerned about that. I'll make sure they know when the next hearing, if they want to come back and
Or
follow up on that.
2.
1 or 2, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Tom, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
The record is 45. I like that.
Okay, yeah. You're getting penalized.